Miss Grace, how are you? Yeah, that's great. I tell you what, let me get this out of the way. Can I do that? Sure. Oh, good, thank you. I appreciate when people tell me to do that.
I'll catch you later.
If I can see you. Can I just turn around and sit down? Is that all right? Good. Well, let me tell you that we've been going all over Southern Illinois today, and every day that I'm home, and so that we're having listening sessions. Because to be your representative is very difficult if I don't listen, and then take that back to Washington and represent you the best I can. Just so you know, so I want to introduce some people here that came in with me. Matt Rice is our district coordinator. Matt actually works out of the Belleville office, but our offices are now in Carbondale and Belleville. Matt works out of the Belleville office, but he's all over Southern Illinois. Matter of fact, he's really felt like he's all over Southern Illinois today. And then Evelyn handles, she works out of the Belleville office. She's actually from Murfreesboro originally, but she works out of the Belleville office. Now we've got Matt Moberly that handles all the Veterans Affairs issues in the Carbondale office, and Carol is there. Normally Carol would be down here with us, but Carol is in the hospital in St. Louis right now, so keep her in your prayers. But we have been to, we went to Mound City, where we had a listening session like this. Then we met with some people that have the Carroll Hospital / dialysis center, everything that they're trying to do for providing medical care down there with the baddest situation is there. And then we went over to Miller City to meet with a group of farmers there and talk about some issues there. All we do is trying to get out and reach out to people, answer your questions that you might have, let you know that I'm wanting to represent you the best I can, and the only way I can do that is like this. So probably the best way to do it is just, because most of you know me whenever I was your state rep, and so now as we moved on from there, this is when a lot of people ask, so how is it? And I said, well, it's kind of like the old job on steroids. And and if somebody told me at 30 or at 54 years old, I'd be sleeping in my office, I would have been surprised then. But there are of the 435, there's about 100 of us actually sleep in our offices. I got a fold-out little ottoman that so we do the work, and it's busy from 7:30 in the morning until 10 o'clock at night, and then
Mike, you have a wife.
Yes, I do. And every once in a while she comes and sees me, and then I see her too. So yeah, and we still own that beauty salon in Murfreesboro, so she still has to, she's still working that. So of course I'm always happy when she comes out to visit me in Washington, because then I get to stay at a hotel, not just in my office. See. So I'm going to open it up to questions. Any questions you might have? I'm sorry I'm a little late. I know we got to be out of here about 4:30 and heading to actually a little before 4:30 and headed up to another meeting. So what's the questions? What are you hearing out there? What's the concerns you have? Glad to hear it.
Can I ask you about Medicaid?
Sure.
Every governor we get in the state of Illinois wants to cut.
Okay.
And how are we supposed to go in and to a hospital and they look at you if you have Medicaid like they're underneath the rug, and I just want to know why they keep cutting.
Well, let me tell you this. First off, remember I'm a federal legislator now, not state. So that is something you probably need to ask Terry Bryant. But I will tell you that they haven't cut Medicaid yet, any. You know, you always hear about it, but they've not cut it, okay? And the reason being is there's certain guidelines that they must meet that on providing. And so if you call Terry, she'll be able to answer that question for you. We can actually get that number to you. She's the one that took my place as state representative, and she's doing a pretty good job. She's got a little bit to learn, but she's doing really, really well, and she's trying to keep in touch with the people the same way that I am. So that's how I'd love to answer it, but that's because it's hers.
But that's what takes me off.
Oh, I understand. Others?
I have a question.
Okay.
When you elected officials are sworn in, You swear to abide by and support the Constitution of the United States of America?
Yes, sir.
Well, I think a lot of these politicians need to reread that politician, because I don't think they're holding up to it. I think they're breaking laws.
I don't disagree with you.
And it states in Constitution the different things that these people can be relieved from office, even if they have a simple misdemeanor, they can be voted out of office. I think this needs to be done to straighten this country out.
You know, one thing I've discovered, and I normally, matter of fact, if I had my brown satchel, I have a small Constitution in it. There's a statement in D.C., what is the most quoted and least read document? The Constitution. And there is and it isn't just the representatives in Congress. It's the president, and it's others.
Right, it's all of them.
Yeah, we have to remember.
It's federal employees.
All of
It applies to
us,
them.
all of them take the oath.
Even the civil people.
I took the oath in the Marine Corps, and I took it for every office that I've held. And I believe it, and I studied it. So, yeah, I don't disagree with you. I'm
Well,
telling
if
you.
they're breaking the law, somebody needs to enforce it.
Yes, yeah.
And you need to quit playing this bad boy and slap them on the hand. Get them out of there. I mean, if I break the law, I'm going to jail.
Right.
I expect that of everybody.
Yeah.
They're going to arrest me.
And of course, I've seen in a short period of time in Congress, they break the law, they go to jail too. See the short period? Several of them. But you're right.
But will anything be done? That's the question. I know I'm right, but anything will be done?
Well, let me tell you that we're doing everything that we can, either through ethics and everything like that, to monitor them that are work with us, okay? Also, let me tell you that there's some very good constitutional scholars that I work with that make sure that what we do and the things that we pass should be constitutional. Now, there is times that things are passed that later have to be proved out in court that maybe they're unconstitutional. And so that's been a constant argument. It's been a bigger argument in Illinois.
I think a lot of these executive orders are unconstitutional.
I believe that, and that's why we originally carried some language in the House to try to stop some of these executive orders. And not only did we carry the language, we pushed it over to the Senate. Now, let me tell you that we were trying to use the power of the purse, which is exactly what we in Congress have the power to do. Because I believe that President Obama, through his immigration rules, violated his oath of office by overstepping his bounds. Now, here's the problem. When we moved that legislation over to the Senate, because of the rules of the Senate has, unlike the House, where we move things fairly quickly and we don't have the filibuster, they have the filibuster. And though there may be enough Republicans to go pass a bill, there's not enough Republicans without Democrat help to pass to break the filibuster. And so when we passed that language over where we were going to control the purse, we specifically passed it over. We knew what we wanted to do. The Senate had to pass it. Reid would not let the filibuster be broke. He held his people. Therefore, we were coming up on a time frame. And if we did not fund and make a move to go ahead and fund Homeland Security, which that was in, we would have ended up running short on Homeland Security funds at the time when Netanyahu was coming in. And then I had to make a decision. Do we make a vote to shut down the government, you see, or do I govern? And we had to make a choice to go ahead and govern. The advantage we had was the courts were already holding up the president for the ability to go ahead and...
Well, they would have the money for these things if they would quit giving it away to foreign country.
Right.
It's like Israel, they have the Iron Dome, do you know that?
Yeah, I'm very aware.
Where the United States just gave them $225 million. That's our money. Spend the money here, the United States, on the citizens, don't give away the other
countries. And let me tell you this.
The floods we had this year, they gave Pakistan $10 million because of the flood they had 5 years ago.
So you would prefer that we not support Israel?
Pardon me?
You would prefer that we not support Israel?
I'm saying it's the taxpayers' money, spend it on the taxpayers of the United States. Get this country out of debt.
We still have to protect our foreign interests as well.
Amen.
What are they doing for us?
They actually work with us quite often. Matter of fact,
They give us money?
Huh?
They give us money?
They have business assets here that pay taxes, yes. They do. They do. Yeah, and you know, I mean, if you're asking me as your legislator to say and vote against Israel, I'm not going to vote against Israel.
I'm saying don't give them money.
That's a vote against Israel.
Well,
And that Iron Dome is vitally important. But likewise, let me tell you this. I will not be voting in any way, shape, or form to allow Iran to get a nuclear bomb.
All right.
I will be standing in opposition to this president and the deal that he's making with a country we can't trust, that is ready to fire at our allies right now. But at the same time they're making the deal, they're bad-mouthing, screaming in the streets, death to the USA and death to Israel. And so this is a very, very important subject to me. And I understand the Iron Dome, and I understand that, and I understand why it is we make that investment. And I have, and if that's your only issue, I mean, I support.
No, my main issue is let's get this country out of debt.
Me too. I want to work to do that too.
I mean,
Let me tell you this.
if you have to bring troops home from the foreign countries where they have their own military, bring them home. Let them spend their money here.
Right.
Hard people here to work, don't harm overseas.
Right.
Bring them home, let them work
But
here.
we have to be careful
Spend
because if you pull them out of certain places, the blood that's already been shed to take the ground,
What about Germany?
you're going to give it back.
English has a military.
But that's different.
Well,
And they're in there.
England.
In most of those places, England is in joint with us. And we do it together. I mean, it is a very complex issue. And let me tell you on the importance of balancing the budget. We are working towards that balanced budget faster during this Congress than it has been in many, many Congresses. Since back during Clinton's time, whenever they actually moved together, Newt Gingrich worked forward with Clinton to work towards a balanced budget. They originally planned about a 9-year plan to get it back balanced. It ended up working in about 4. We put together about a 9-year plan. We believe that if the economy turns around, we can do the same thing and try to get it balanced and start heading in the right direction. And I agree with you. I got 10 grandkids. I want to turn it over better to them. And I am working with the people, you know, and want to make sure that a balanced budget occurs. I don't disagree with you on that, but I do maybe disagree that, you know, to all of a sudden say let's pull funds from an area, you got to know the whole structure of what's going on.
Well, balanced budget is nice, but you got to save money.
Right.
So you can get us out of debt.
We're not an isolated country anymore.
No,
We
we're
saw
not.
that on 9/11. Why?
We never were.
They can come to us just as easy as anything.
Well, remember, we tried to be isolated before the Second World War, and that didn't really work out for us. 9/11 showed that, especially when we're dealing with the terrorism and their tactics, we are still, and I'll tell you what we need to do, is we need to make sure that we keep our position as a superpower. And if we don't go ahead and work to make sure our economy works here, but also that we compete in foreign markets, then we could lose that very, very quickly. We're only one generation away from this. No, I am not for, no. The question was, are you for Cuba? Let me clarify that. When Cuba becomes a free state and a democracy away from the Castros, you bet I'm for it. You bet. But until that regime, and let me tell you this, I don't know how any of you know Raul Aela from Carbondale. Raul is a businessman that's been in Carbondale since, well, he's been in business since the mid-70s. He got a lot of rental properties, and Raul was 16, I think, or 15, when Castro came into his mother and father's, and I believe it was a sugar factory. It may have been a flour factory, but it was the largest one in Cuba. And originally they came in and told them that you were going to follow our rules. Well, they didn't like it, but okay, fine. The next thing you know, they came in and they took control of it and they killed several of their employees, and they escaped with barely with their lives. And they came up here and they lost everything. Raul's in his 70s now. And it hurts him tremendously to think that we're going to go down and we're going to make deals with the Castro regime that destroyed his family and their livelihood and all of that, with no agreement that things are going to be better there. So yeah, the answer is no. No.
If not the nuclear bomb being a threat to letting Iran have this treaty that Obama has been stirring up. One of the things that concerns me is that now they're going to have the oil, and they can sell the oil overseas.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's going to hurt our oil, which
Right.
I have a son who lives in North Dakota, and North Dakota's hurting because of oil prices going down
Right.
$47 on a barrel.
Let me tell you something that coming up, and I want to ask you as my constituents, okay? In the 1970s, when we had the fuel embargo, we had the oil embargo and all of the different things whenever Carter was in, we actually we quit trading our crude oil overseas. So we can trade gasoline and oil that's been processed, but we can't trade crude. My studies, and so you know, there is sweet crude and sour crude. Now, sour crude is what we process a lot of. However, we produce a lot of sweet crude, but only about 7%. See, we're maxed out on what we can produce, or we can refine, okay? Because it's a sweet crude, it's different to process. However, that's what's right here in our Southern Illinois basin and the other basins around. So we have a large amount of that. To deal with the problem you're talking about, that we are talking right now in Congress of freeing up the ability to transport that crude. And it is in a bipartisan manner that we're looking at this, because we believe that it will cause a boom in jobs. It will take that market away from, if Iran would come back, which I don't think, if we hold our position with our tariffs and we can get our allies to hold their position, which Kerry says they won't, but we believe they will, okay? If we can get that, then we can actually take a lot of that business away from Russia as well and reposition ourselves and put our people to work. So that's what we're looking at, but if you hear anything on that, you're going to be reading a lot about it before long, and that's why we're here. We've done input and everything like that from that aspect. But you're right on the oil. We've got to make sure that we become the controlling factor in the oil right now. Other questions, other statements?
Mike, what's going down on Planned Parenthood?
Well, let me explain that to you. We keep watching the videos that are coming out. And did you notice that there was a judge the other day that stopped these videos and said they can't be seen anymore? And I'm not sure how that actually works through the Freedom of Information. You see?
Yeah, I've seen it.
And so, but let me tell you that if it continues and the things keep showing up, we'll have no choice but to deal with Planned Parenthood, because it is a felony to sell human body parts. It's a felony to sell human body parts.
Yeah, well,
And it is an issue that I think you'll see us dealing with when we get back. Yeah. And there's no question where I'm at on that. Everybody that has known me knows I'm pro-life.
Yeah, about the only station I noticed that covers that is in the Fox.
Yeah, and it's a shame. It's a shame that, you know, if you get on, you have to get to that point. But the reality is there's some real issues there, and we need to make sure exactly what the discovery is, and react accordingly. But as far as my position, I've always been pro-life, you know. So that we'll see what happens with it. I think it's interesting though that freedom of speech was blocked by the courts in this case.
It's kind of the same way it's going on about the emails about the Hillary and that's all being.
Let me tell you, Trey Gowdy is doing a wonderful job of aggressively going after what happened in Benghazi. That's how that came about. Trey's office is just down from mine. he and I talk on this stuff quite a bit, and that's not a committee I'm assigned to, but let me tell you that the truth needs to come out.
Yes, it does.
I'm not making a judgment call one way or the other. I'm telling you the truth needs to come out. And as things have started to progress, there's questions of why it is that all of those things were destroyed.
Right.
And that's not a partisan statement, because if you want to remember, there was a guy by the name of Dick Nixon. He also destroyed tapes.
Now, all of us there would be in jail if we'd done that. They wouldn't ask us, they'd come and cuff us and
Right.
stuff us.
And the idea is that when you're in that high of a position, it's very clear what the rules are. And now, just so you know, somebody says, well, do you have your own private secretary? That's not required in my job. But that is required in the Secretary of the State job. But so. Other questions?
Well, maybe you can explain this to me. Just, just satisfy my own curiosity. About 2 years ago, a 4-star general was forced to be retired. His forced to retire and be reduced in rank because his non-military wife is using military transportation for personal travel. Now, why does the Obama family get to use military transportation?
Because honest to goodness, under the existing law, the president's immediate family also falls under control like that. A general's immediate family does not. Okay, and you know what? I want to make sure that Obama pays for everything that But any president, their immediate family, they get security details, they get travel, they get all of those things. Now, if you think that they're traveling too much, or I think they're traveling too much, then it's our option as citizens to, next time they're up for a vote, but don't vote them back in, or aggressively go to your congressman and say, would you work to try to reduce the funding for this? Well, when we do that, we've got to be very, very careful, because I don't want to do it based on a partisan. I want to say, okay, how do I make sure that, because I'm going to tell you, I didn't vote for Obama. He and I differ on policy. But I want my president protected and his family protected.
True.
Yeah, you think, well, how about this? When they go on vacation, why doesn't the family pay their own way? Figure out what it would cost to go to Hawaii or whatever when they go, and bill her. When she's flying on Air Force One, or bring helicopter one when she goes to whatever that.
Right. You could charge her. I guess you could charge her a standard airline price to wherever they're going. But as far as the overall cost, that's not where the real expense is. The real expense is in the maneuver. The real expense is in the maneuvering of the protective people and all of the Secret Service and that go with it. Because when you move, and let me tell you, I'll give you an example of that. I saw this happen, and I never thought about it until becoming a member of Congress. We had a retreat. The Republicans had a retreat one week, and the Democrats had a retreat the next week. And they got us out of D.C. and they took us up to where did we go? Up to Hershey, Pennsylvania, because the Democrats went the next week, okay? And I never thought about it. They said, okay, that there's a place called the Horseshoe. It's between the Rayburn building and the Longworth building that I work in and live in, and then Rayburn, and then the Cannon building. And they had like 14 buses out there. And so they say, meet out there, and you get on the 14 buses, and it's about a little better than driving from here to St. Louis, up to where we had to go to. And all of a sudden we started taking off. And I realized that these buses aren't stopping at any stop sign. And they're not stopping at any even yield sign. They're not stopping. Matter of fact, they've got about 6 or 7 sedans in front, black sedans in front, 6 or 7 behind. When we start down the interstate, there's state police on all sides, and federal police on all sides, and there's helicopters over these 14 buses. And I look at Peter Roskin, who's from Illinois, and I've known him for years, and I said, Peter, he said, yeah, this is wild, isn't it? And he said, the first time I had this happen, then he said, I realized you're moving half the Congress of the United States from point A to point B. The maneuver is big. Now, were those meetings necessary? Yes, they were. But the move, you're moving and protecting. When we drove through Pennsylvania and the interstate, and you could look up into the wood line, there were people with high-powered rifles up there because that's the maneuvers that they make. Same thing with the president whenever they move, even more so because now you're not protecting 14 buses, but you're protecting that.
Well, no, you know, I'm all for protecting the president and all that. I mean, you know, if the military has a law that states non-military spouse cannot use military transportation, he is commander-in-chief. He is our head of military personnel.
Yes, he
That
is.
law should also apply to him.
Yeah.
So I think there should be compensation
Of some
whenever his family travels on security, going on vacation or whatever. She should have to pay for that trip out of their money.
Right.
But they can have the security guard and all that's fine. But I think, you know, get this country out of debt, you gotta start saving money somewhere.
I understand your argument.
That's a good place to
I
start.
understand.
Just like the president of France spent $500,000 to feed him and like 300 people. Come on now, that's ridiculous.
When what now? I
The
didn't.
president of France was here about a year ago. They
Okay.
spent $500,000 and had 300 people come to eat. That's between $1,600 and $1,700 a person for a meal.
Yeah, I don't think I've had one of those since I've been there.
That's ridiculous. You know, president could have grilled a steak for him, or his wife, you know,
Yeah.
his wife could have mixed a meatloaf or baked a chicken or something.
There you go.
He only spent
There you go.
$500,000.
Exactly.
I'd like your ideas and thoughts about the coal industry now
Okay.
that Obama's starting.
Let me
Go
tell you.
after it.
Let me tell you that the war on coal, we, from right here in the coal belt, know how ridiculous it is. And let me explain that when I say that. We have a tremendous amount of reserves right here. Right here. We have the best technology on burning that coal cleanly. But yet we've only got one coal burning power plant in the state of Illinois that burns Illinois coal. Now we have several that burn coal, but it's Western coal, okay? But what we do is we pack up that coal and we put it on the Mississippi, and we're glad to sell it. But it floats down to New Orleans and then across, and it's either sold into India or China. And it is put into coal burning fire plants that don't have the technology that we have. And it burned and sent right up into the atmosphere. And I don't know if you know this, the world turns. You know, the world turns. And so that atmosphere, that's ours in there. So why wouldn't it be smarter to keep it here and use the best technology until, that doesn't mean I don't want wind and solar and other types of energy. But right now, I can tell you, because on the state of Illinois, for all the years I was there, I worked on the public utilities. Only 6% of our power, when the sun's shining and when the wind is blowing, comes from those sources of energy. Okay? Only 6%. And 42% comes from coal. So if we continue down the path that the president is wanting to do, you want to see 42% of a reduction in the power. Now, not only the jobs that we would lose
Right.
here, but also, I want you to think about this. Think about the person that's on a set income, a senior citizen that's on a set income, trying to keep their electric bill down to around $50 a month.
Yeah.
You cut 42% of the power in the state of Illinois, that goes to 500 like that.
Yeah. And not only businesses.
And-
Businesses are going to be hit.
Oh, sure.
And that's going to cut into our economy.
Right. And then also, as we work to try to get, I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but are you familiar with WOTUS, Waters of the U.S., and what the proposals of the EPA is at this time? The farmers know it pretty well, but not only farmers, but it could be construction workers, it could be you and your family's backyard. Basically, what's been happening over the years, we've given rain from the federal government over what's known as the waters of the U.S., and basically it was any navigable waterways. Navigable, to me, navigable means that if you turn a canoe around in it, and I want that. I want clean water, and you do too. But now they're wanting to go and control everything, and one of the congressmen best described it, they want to control the water that runs off the brim of your hat. No, that's not what you're supposed to be into. And so, any rate, let me tell you this, that earlier, about 4 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, Southern Illinois had a guy who wrote an article, and many of you might have read it as a commentary, and everybody is allowed to have their opinion. He badmouthed me and John Shimkus for standing against the EPA for the farmers and for the coal industry. Yes, I would. Every time. My district is made up of people who work in the coal industry and are agricultural people. And you better believe that I'm going to stand for my people above all else, because it's a representative form of government.
How
And
do we
that's why
stop Obama's rolling of?
Well, here's what we're doing. Two couple things
Everything
together.
he started, he's pretty much gone through it.
Right. Well, let me tell you right now, not only we are trying through Bost, but also there's some language that we're working on that we've got to stop the carbon rules, the new rules for the EPA there. But also the courts are now holding them up as well. So they're being blocked not only from the legislative branch, but also the judicial branch, because they see it as overreaching as well.
Why can't he be impeached when he's taking away our constitutional rights?
Well, let me tell you that any president can be impeached. It's within our Constitution.
I don't know why they're not doing it. And they're not.
Everybody here, I'm pretty sure there's several people here that have that feeling. But the reality is you've got to have the votes necessary to do that. And there's not enough votes necessary to do that. And we still have to govern. So we've got to make the tough decisions to move forward and continue to govern over the next 16 months. I didn't vote for him. I didn't vote for him the first time. I didn't vote for him the second time. But he, as I said before you got here, he's still the president. I have to do what I have to do in my job to make sure that we keep operating our government as most effectively and efficiently as we can to provide the best for our citizens as we possibly can, to protect our borders, to deal with foreign aggression, to make sure that we've got a strong military force, to deal with interstate commerce. All of those things I will continue to work for and govern.
He's putting Muslim Brotherhood in every one of those places, though.
And these are things that we have to watch very, very closely. But we do have freedom of religion in this nation.
I'm going to get
And I don't, once again, that doesn't mean I agree with that either. But I agree with the freedom of religion. I don't necessarily agree with all religions. How about
Well,
that?
I'm not going to force what I believe on anybody.
Norma?
And they're not going to force their unbelief on me. And it isn't that we hate anybody. We don't. You know, they disagree with us, we disagree with them. That's a constitutional right.
That's right. And you have the ability to sit here in this room, thank God, and say what you just said.
And we're going to have to pray and pray and pray to save our country.
I pray a lot, don't you know?
And we just had a study at the nursing home on Nehemiah, first chapter, where he was praying for his country because it had all gone corrupt and everything. It just reminds me of today, you know, and I thought, I'm going to pray. I've never